A promotion was announced in the office, a chance that Jasmine had waited for over 5 long years. She had spent countless late nights, handled every crisis with precision, and carried the weight of her department with quiet dedication. Today, she thought, would be different. Today, her work, her loyalty, and her integrity would finally be recognized. But when the names were read aloud, it wasn't hers. Ethan Reynolds, a colleague with far less experience and fewer accomplishments, had received the promotion. The room erupted with congratulations, but for Jasmine, the words were hollow. She left the conference room with her head held high, but inside, a storm brewed. She had given everything, and yet she had been overlooked. And as she walked back to her desk, she felt the weight of countless injustices pressing on her shoulders. Every overlooked effort, every quiet act of excellence that went unnoticed, every subtle dismissal, whispered through office corridors, seemed to converge into one sharp, undeniable truth. Her talent and dedication meant less than connections, favoritism, and the unspoken biases that lingered beneath the polished surface of the company. At that moment, she wondered how often this happened to others like her. How often someone with skill, drive, and heart was pushed aside while someone less deserving advanced because of who they knew, not what they could do. Jasmine poured herself a cup of coffee, staring at the steam curling above the mug, and wondered if speaking up would even matter. It had always felt safer to remain quiet, to let her work speak for itself. But now she realized that her work had spoken, and the answer she received was clear. For a moment, she allowed herself to feel the sting of disappointment, the bitterness of unfairness, the quiet ache of being invisible. But Jasmine was not one to stay down. Somewhere in the quiet corners of her mind, she found a spark, a resolve that whispered, "You are more than their recognition. You are more than their approval. You are enough." She remembered her brother's words from last night, a reminder to hold on to what was true, even when the world around you seemed intent on proving otherwise. That evening, as the office emptied and the city lights began to glimmer through the high-rise windows, Jasmine sat at her desk and began reviewing the work that had been dismissed. Every mistake Ethan had made, every corner cut, every risk ignored, she documented meticulously. Not out of spite, but out of necessity. She knew that the evidence had to be undeniable, concrete, impossible to ignore. She stayed late into the night, her fingers tracing reports and emails, her mind piecing together a pattern that no one in the upper ranks could claim ignorance of. And as the hours passed, the spark within her grew into a quiet fire. Jasmine realized that her fight was not just for a title or a raise. It was for recognition of truth. It was for the principle that hard work, honesty, and integrity should never be invisible. For the first time, she felt the weight of her own power, not the power given by a promotion, not the power handed down by favoritism, but the power that comes from knowing the truth and having the courage to act on it. And as she looked at the city stretching endlessly beyond her office, Jasmine thought about the countless others who had been overlooked. The countless people whose contributions went unrecognized because of bias, because of ignorance, because of fear. She thought about the quiet ways people were pushed aside every day, the silent injustices that accumulated like a storm, ready to break if someone dared to confront them. She realized she could be that someone. But before taking that step, she paused to think about you, the viewer. Where are you watching from? Which city do you call home? Who are you in your own story of struggle, perseverance, and quiet courage? And as you reflect on that, consider subscribing to this channel and hitting the like button so we can continue sharing stories that remind us all of the power of integrity and the strength of the human spirit. Jasmine decided she would act not with anger, not with vengeance, but with careful calculation and unwavering moral clarity. She reached out to HR the next morning, presenting the evidence she had meticulously gathered. Every report, every overlooked mistake, every sign of favoritism was laid bare. She did not demand justice with loud words or threats. She simply presented the truth and let it speak for itself. At first, HR was hesitant, brushing off the claims as minor errors, small oversights in a complex workplace. But Jasmine persisted, calmly and methodically, answering questions, providing clarity, and standing firm even when doubt and resistance threatened to overwhelm her. Her persistence was quiet but unyielding, a demonstration of courage that demanded attention not through noise, but through the undeniable weight of reality. Days passed, and tension built in the office. Ethan, once smug and untouchable, began to notice subtle shifts. Emails that had gone unanswered now required explanations. Projects that had previously sailed through without scrutiny were now examined under a microscope, and the quiet, steady presence of Jasmine became impossible to ignore. Even Laura Mitchell began to sense the undercurrent of accountability Jasmine had unleashed, though she refused to acknowledge it openly. Behind the polished smiles and professional facades, the truth was taking hold. Jasmine's quiet diligence was shaking the structures of favoritism, and for the first time, those who had relied on connections rather than competence felt the pressure of scrutiny. Through it all, Jasmine remained composed, her focus never diverted by anger or the desire for revenge. Her goal was simple and profound: to ensure that merit and honesty mattered more than privilege and bias. It was a fight for principle, not for recognition, and yet, quietly, she felt the beginning of a change. As the story continued to unfold, Jasmine realized that justice often arrived in unexpected ways, that the smallest acts of courage could ripple outward, touching lives in ways no one could predict. And she knew, deep within, that this was her moment, not defined by the promotion itself, but by her unwavering commitment to what was right. The week that followed was tense and charged with quiet anticipation. Jasmine continued her work, maintaining her professionalism while HR and the external auditors reviewed the evidence she had provided. The office buzzed with unspoken questions, hushed conversations behind closed doors, and subtle shifts in behavior. Ethan Reynolds, once arrogant and untouchable, grew increasingly uneasy, feeling the walls of scrutiny close in. Laura Mitchell, too, was forced to confront the bias she had allowed to fester, the favoritism that had dictated promotions and decision-making for years. Jasmine remained calm. She did not gloat, she did not celebrate prematurely, because she understood that true justice was not found in immediate recognition, but in the quiet triumph of truth over neglect. And slowly, very slowly, change began to take shape. HR returned with findings that confirmed every detail Jasmine had meticulously documented. Favoritism had influenced the promotion, oversight had been selective, and the errors that had gone unnoticed in Ethan's projects were significant enough to warrant corrective action. Jasmine was offered the promotion she had been denied, not because she demanded it, but because she had made the right choice when it mattered most, acting with integrity in the face of injustice. Yet, as she received the news, Jasmine's thoughts were not consumed by personal victory. She thought about all those who had been overlooked before her, about the countless talented people marginalized by bias, ignored for reasons beyond their control. And she realized that her true achievement was not the title or the corner office that came with it, but the quiet but undeniable message she had sent. Fairness and diligence cannot be silenced forever. Her colleagues began to see her in a new light. Respect, once grudging and polite, turned into admiration. Some were inspired, others introspective, realizing the subtle ways bias had shaped their own assumptions and decisions. And in those moments, Jasmine understood that the ripple of her actions extended far beyond her personal gain. It touched the culture of the office, challenged assumptions, and quietly demanded accountability. Jasmine also reflected on her personal journey through this struggle. She remembered the late nights at her desk, the moments of doubt, the silent questioning of whether her persistence would ever matter. And now, standing in the knowledge that she had acted with courage and clarity, she felt a profound sense of peace. She had faced injustice, not with anger or resentment, but with measured determination and unwavering principle. The change she had sparked was proof that moral courage, even when quiet, has power. As the weeks turned into months, Jasmine implemented subtle changes in her department. She mentored younger colleagues, advocated for fair evaluations, and ensured that merit, integrity, and character were prioritized over favoritism or personal connections. The office began to shift, slowly but unmistakably, toward a culture of fairness and accountability, all sparked by the steady determination of one woman who refused to accept injustice silently. And Jasmine continued her life outside the office with humility. She celebrated the success quietly, took joy in mentoring, and never let recognition define her. Her happiness came from knowing she had done what was right, that she had remained true to her principles, and that she had created a small but meaningful change in a world that often overlooked fairness and integrity. She would sometimes pause at her desk, thinking of the countless others still fighting for recognition, and she hoped her story might serve as encouragement, a reminder that courage and honesty, even when met with resistance, can lead to change that matters. And now, as you listen to this story, consider your own life. Think of the moments when fairness was denied, when injustice occurred quietly around you. What would you do if faced with the same choice? Would you act with courage, even if the world seemed to ignore you? Would you stand for what is right, even when recognition and reward were uncertain? Jasmine's journey is a testament to the quiet power of integrity and the strength of moral courage. It shows that the smallest acts of persistence and truth can ripple outward, reshaping the world in subtle but profound ways. And so, we leave you with this thought. Sometimes, the fight for justice is not loud or dramatic, but quiet, steadfast, and deeply human. It is in these moments that character is revealed and real change begins. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the importance of standing up for what is right, we invite you to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Join us as we continue to share stories that inspire courage, honor integrity, and celebrate the quiet triumphs of the human spirit. Because in the end, justice may be delayed, unfairness may persist, but the power of a single determined soul is never wasted.